and welcome to episode 48 of the Buxton Barrow Man. Before we get to the sort of title, thumbnail, etc., we need some context. A paper published on the 16th of December 2024 marks the start of the largest shake-up of governance in the UK in generations. The white paper states that all two-tier local governments should be dissolved into a single unitary council. Where I live is one of those places with a two-tiered council, and it is quite literally changing everything. As it stands, Derbyshire County Council look after things such as roads and education, but our local council, the High Peak Borough, look after more visible things in the town, such as park maintenance, waste management and planning. But Derbyshire isn't the only county run like this. In fact, it is one of 21, ranging from Kent to Lancashire, but not for long. On the 6th of February this year, the government had invited all two-tiered areas in England to make proposals for the future. Interim proposals shall be made by the 21st of March and full proposals by the 28th of November, meaning by the end of the year, over 19 million people's lives will have a shake-up and move to a new council. Well, how much do people actually know about this? I'm not too sure, so in this video I'm going to break it down what it means for those living in and out of the two-tiered councils, and specifically looking at my local area, the High Peak. So, what would a restructure look like? Well, as unitary councils, the government expects each area to have a population of 500,000 or more, but exceptions can be made and everything will be case by case. It'll follow recent history, similar to other councils in the past. It'll mean that local services should be streamlined, so things such as waste collection, park maintenance, things like that, should all be under one council and not different from one place to the next. In theory, making it run smoother, and in the government's eyes, cheaper. Things such as local funding could also be made easier by only having one government party to go through instead of two. But a key thing that is lost, as shown on this table from Buckinghamshire Council, and that's local engagement. It will become a lot harder to have your voice heard. In fact, Buckinghamshire in 2021 replaced its 4 councils to just 1. And the councillors, those who make the important decisions, were reduced from 236 to 147 and soon to 97. That's less than 100 people making the decisions for over 550,000. Take that as you will. To put that into perspective, in the High Peak we share our councillors with the Staffordshire Moorlands. That is an area that's roughly 186,000 people. And we have over 90 councillors currently. In theory, it'll be easier to point the finger when things go wrong, but of course it will always be politicians at the top and they always own up to the mistakes, right? Nonetheless, it's happening if we like it or not. We'll all be under unitary authorities come November, and each council will struggle to adapt to this new system as the government requires you to basically start from scratch. And after reading paper after paper, there is no clear way to successfully implement this. Now, a huge reason for making this video is the shake-up. It's been so severe that places such as Slough and Reading are being thrown from Berkshire into Greater London at the proposals of a unitary council. And the rural areas of the High Peak, it looks like we could become part of Greater Manchester. So, what's up with that? Well, the current Labour MP says it's a no-brainer for the High Peak to become part of Greater Manchester and a metropolitan borough such as Stockport or Tameside. And to clear things up, yes, councils are becoming one thing, but metropolitan boroughs will still remain. Typical red versus blue, the Conservatives are against the High Peak merging and would rather us be under Derbyshire, as we are. Now, both, of course, give their own reasons behind it, but I couldn't care if they're blue or red. What I care about is what it means for us. So let's start off with some visible differences. Of course, if we move to Stockport or Tameside, waste collection services, collection times, things like that will be different, and it will be provided by a different council or company. Along with this, we will gain a blue bin. It's for paper and cardboard. And in recent news, if we were to go to Stockport, if you had any garden waste, you have to pay £59 for the pleasure of removing it. Currently, park maintenance and council property maintenance is undertaken by Alliance Environmental and Alliance Norse. If we were to stay in Derbyshire, it would probably stay the same. If we were to move to Stockport, over time it might be taken by the totally local company. It's an awful name. If it were to move to Tameside, quite refreshingly, it will be the council themselves. Roads and transportation is something that could differ drastically depending on which council we get put in. Currently, as it stands, Derbyshire County Council are already in control of all the roads around here. Buses and trains, etc. are private, so I don't really expect that to change if we stay in Derbyshire. But if we were to move to Greater Manchester, well, there would be a push to integrate us into the B network. It would mean the purchase of the bus network around here and put it into the council's hands, potentially lowering fares and having a better integrated system. Along the lines of this, something that's already put in motion, the Buxton and Glossop train lines are going to be purchased by the Transport for Greater Manchester and already integrated into the B network. And I'm sure a merger with the Greater Manchester Council would further push this. The last visible change would be planning. Of course, going under either Derbyshire, Stockport or Tameside, and we can only hope, whichever direction, they'll understand the impacts that it could make to more rural areas that either will be in charge of. Now, the less visible things, and I'll start with the one that makes people panic: council houses. Both Greater Manchester and Derbyshire are at a chronic deficit when it comes to social housing, with news articles coming out last year stating that Manchester has over 6,000 in need on the waiting list, and Derbyshire nearly at 12,000. So I'll be honest, whichever direction it ends up in, the High Peak will have to accommodate. There are other non-visible differences, such as service funding, things like police and fire. For police budgets, Derbyshire's is higher by 24 million, but neither pass official inspections with anything higher than adequate. Fire services seems to have a huge gap in funding, with Manchester's being almost double, to the point I'm not sure it's even correct how little Derbyshire's budget is, from what I've found. Nevertheless, Manchester's fire service does reflect that, with the best possible outcome in its inspection, 3 good stars, whilst Derbyshire had 2 goods and it requires improvement. Now, NHS services operate differently, basically being independent, so I doubt anything will change. Because currently, Glossop is already in Tameside NHS, and down in Buxton, we're under Derbyshire Communities. Would be handy to move to Stockport, but nothing is concrete here. And the final thing, non-visible, but majorly impactful, is tax. I know, a dreaded word. Because in the High Peak we're a little different, our tax rates are different from one village to the next, so memorise this table of which one you're in, and now Stockport. No matter what band or place, High Peak, yes, it is higher at Stockport than it is in the High Peak. Now, looking at Tameside, and interestingly, either place in the Tameside Council, if you live in Chapel and the Frith, you're paying more than them. But literally, like everything in this video, it comes with a pinch of salt and a big asterisk, because either Manchester Boroughs or Derbyshire Unitary, the High Peak might just become a tax boundary in itself, and we all pay more or less, either way it swings. And so this leads me towards the end of the video, and the end of this speculation, because ultimately what it boils down to is culture. The pros and cons of being in Manchester or Derbyshire really seems minuscule, where no matter what, our council is going to be dissolved. Everything is going to change. So what really matters is, do you consider yourself a Mancunian or a Derbyshire, don't really have a name, do we? Derbyshire folk. But I want to know what you think. If you've got any opinions on the situation, big or small, please leave them down below. I'd love to hear them. But that is it from this oddly political episode of the Buxton Barrow Man. Thank you very much for watching. Enjoy the week, whatever you get up to. And until next time, ta-ra. Tameside, it's Tameside, not Tameside. Oh God, we'll be here all day. No! Oh! Well, that changes things, doesn't it?